here we go again. Let's take a look at the markets. Friday was pretty interesting. A lot of people are scared by the indices down breakout. Please remember, you always want to look at the chart and let the market tell you where it is. And we are using the balance zone to, or as a reference point to know where the market is. Let's start out with gold. Last week bounced off the balance zone red line. It didn't touch it quite there, but it moved out. This week came quite a bit higher and then retraced. Let's take a look at the daily chart to understand what is going on here and how possible it is that this market will not continue up. When you take a look at the daily chart, you can see the last demand zone down here. It was spiked through there. You have your weekly fractal above the balance zone. That's the fractal we don't care about. And here you get, hopefully we get the weekly fractal for our new stop location. Ever since the demand zone was hit, you got a lot of buy orders and the market zoomed up. It gives you this fractal here now on the way to new highs. Probably. We are trading in the last 3 days into the balance zone again. We need that to create the fractal. If Friday would have been very strong, closing somewhere up here, there would have been no fractal. Now we have one. Even though there is no bounce to be seen here, it's totally possible we'll come down again like this, maybe even lower than that previous fractal on the daily before we head out. As long as we are not establishing continuous movements into or below that fractal into the weekly balance zone, we are not in a downtrend. We are still in an uptrend in gold. Same is true for silver. So when you take a look here, this is what it could look like. Touching the red line, maybe penetrating this low, not being a fractal here, forming one somewhere here, and then heading out again. We are waiting for that fractal inside the balance zone. Before it's there, it's very unlikely we'll see the market go that much lower. I mean, every line in that balance zone could be the turnaround point. Let's see which one it is. This is already pretty significant, especially since on the daily we have the setup that we need to buy. So if you are trading the daily chart, you would have your buy order above that fractal and then just follow the market when it heads out. Let's take a look at the Dow Jones index, and this is just a representative for all the indices in America here. What you get is your fractal breakout at that point. And look at what the market does. It comes out, it goes nowhere, and here you have your fractal above the balance zone, the one we don't care about. And now we have this one day, Friday, that trades into the balance zone on the weekly very heavily, really heavily, but there's no fractal here right now. Our stops are really far below, somewhere below the balance zone. It's your choice if you want to put it below the green line, below the red line, or even below the blue line to give the market enough room to move. Just because this has traded into here, it's only the beginning of a major correction on the daily. If you look at it, you can see that all of this time here, the AO indicator, the oscillator down here, was only in a minor correction. It is only here that it has gone into this bigger type of correction. You have your last important demand down here. That would be something like the upper border of it, and the market is trading right, or it's closing inside of these two lines, the breakout line and the last demand zone line. You could put in a lower demand zone border, which would be at this area, and the market may as well come this far. I mean, a closing bar like this at the very low of the movement on Friday indicates that there will be a gap down open on Monday, and then you'll see a turnaround. It could take a week, it could take 2 weeks in this area before the market comes up again. It could only be 1 day, giving you the reversal candle and then zooming out. Let's see what it's going to be. Definitely going to be interesting to watch the markets in the coming week or weeks, as this is the decision time right now. Will there be a fractal? Where will it be? And will the continuation take place? If it doesn't take place, make sure that your risk is adjusted and that you do not lose too much if you are really, really wrong on this. Again, remember, no reason to short if you trend follow this market on the monthly, which is the overall time frame compared to the daily and weekly charts, is still above the balance zone, which means it's up. Doesn't mean it can come down here and then move up again. We'll have to just wait and see what it's going to be. The euro is really annoying still. We talked about this so much. The stop is currently above that fractal. Last week saw a little bit of a retracement after some sort of news came out. Let's see if at some point this is able to come down more and actually yield into a trend. If you take a look at the monthly euro chart, what you see if you really zoom in here, and let's remove all of these drawings, what you see is a downtrend, a correction. It's such a simple kind of deal here, not a rapid correction that runs up to the blue line and then does some sort of complex movement, but it's just going sideways. It dropped, and from that point on it was going a little bit higher again, but it just moved slowly over a longer period of time, year and a half, into the balance zone. However, it only reached the red line. As of now, you have your fractal, and the monthly shows you that breakout with this fractal here or all the way down here. And when you take a look at the trend kind of, or the underlying structure of the market, what you get is a move, a correction, and a move that goes down into the old or into the previous demand zone or the support zone, which is here. So a longer type of correction in this area might eventually yield into this longer trend coming down, continuing what we already saw. We'll see if that happens. If the market starts to trade up more, we have an indication here. If this fractal is broken, then the market may as well head out to the upside, but that would mean on the weekly that we need to break this area here. If you remember from the last videos, we were looking at this kind of black line, which marks the resistance or the supply, and every time we came into that supply, we traded lower. So it takes quite a bit of steam to go on top of this and then really head out to the upside, especially if it would do that. There are no divergences down here. I mean, you do see a turnaround without any divergences, but it's relatively seldom, relatively rare, and it's much more likely that with this move, this correction, you will see the continuation of the previous move. Again, it's a waiting game. It's such a waiting game. Looking at the British pound Australian, you do get the candle that has traded nicely lower, but now we're at the green line resistance, and the trend is still intact here. If we take a look at the daily chart, what we usually see is something like that, where you have your internal correction. Look at the AO, no zero line cross to the upside in this downtrend. You have your fractal inside the balance zone. The market moves again, but it's a smaller movement after the internal correction than if this would have been a major correction. What you now get is your major correction, okay? You have your divergence in here. This is higher than this. However, the indicator is lower than it is over here on this side. Now, a penetration of this area, the market coming as high as this and then going down again, would almost be a textbook example of a downtrend and how it behaves internally. This would leave you with a spike into the balance zone on the weekly, and then a continuation down, hopefully. We'll see if that happens. If it does, you'll get your new fractal inside the balance zone right there. The monthly chart is still giving you an indication for a downtrend, since we're staying below the balance zone. So that's the only way we are going to trade this towards to. We do have also some well, last week we were looking at the Australian, New Zealand. This is actually the only thing that did something this week that is in our favor. Here you have your breakout marked. this is a fractal, and this is a fractal, and we are closing below those breakouts. So looks like this could get going over to this low at least. Let's just wait and see. Okay, that's the market update for this week. Again, should have noticed how much of a waiting game and how much patience you need and how unthankful it really is to try and catch the major market move, because it's going against you so much. Still doesn't mean it won't work out. It just means you have to stick to your process and execute as your system, your back-tested system tells you to, and you don't want to be caught up by all of these emotions. Even when the Brexit was happening, this is the best way to approach it. Even with major market news, you just want to follow your process, since nobody knows what it's going to do. Don't get caught up in all these loud voices on the social networks where people are saying, now finally the market is dropping and this is it, and we'll see George Soros' prediction of a major market crash actually happen. It's not going to be like that this quickly. You will get your fractal first and then it might drop, okay? But we don't even have the fractal yet, so we don't even know if we'll see that turnaround in the indices in the balance zone. And that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and see you next week.